Here are the biggest changes to the monsters in the new Monster Manual. Now, these aren't the changes that make them unbalanced necessarily, but just some of the more interesting and notable deviations. First of all, the art. Yes, I'll make this quick. Everything just looks so much better. All the undead look horrid and not goofy. The cockatrice looks goofy and not horrid. Instead of character art, there's full scene art, and because of it, they all carry this needed sense of gravitas, except the Pit Fiend, which doesn't get the art and looks like Tim Curry playing the devil in Legend. And you did the impossible! You made the Modrons not look absolutely vomit-inducing with their moist-ass lips by making them more cartoony than Uncanny Valley. And speaking of which, Modron's got a tiny but very notable change that is pretty wacky. Before, Modrons just had their usual weapons that they carry, but now they do force damage instead of the usual weapon damage. While I've never heard of any low-level campaign starting in Mechanus, these guys are CR an 8th to CR 2, and they can deal force damage without spells. So that means the Barbarian can't resist their attacks, and low-level spells can't do much about force damage. This is seemingly so small, but as we know, force damage is the god tier damage type. Again, you're only likely to meet Modrons when you can traverse the planes, and at that point, you're so high level that you can just crush a Modron. So as we move on, a similar change is that Goblins, the low level and super fun bandit encounters to deploy, can do an extra d4 damage when they have advantage on the roll. So this is basically a mini sneak attack for all goblins on all weapons for when they surprise you or when they flank you. An extra d4 is pretty small, but goblins always plan to ambush you and do dirty tricks to get advantage. So this means that goblins will absolutely destroy a wizard PC at low levels if they manage to surprise them. Advantage on initiative from surprise, act first, and then you send a hail of d6 and a d4, and you best hope that they don't crit or you're 100% dead. The next thing I want to bring up actually applies to a bunch of monsters, and that is the amount of enemies that can automatically apply a condition when they hit you. While I'm not against the idea as a whole, because it means that certain spells have more use, lesser restoration, that kind of thing, combat will be a little bit more quick, and monsters can actually do their cool things without having to hope that the super powerful players fail their saves, not likely, it now does mean that some fights could turn very ugly. For example, mummies. They can lay a curse on you that stops you regaining hit points when they hit you, but now they automatically inflict their rotting curse on you when they hit. Meaning that you best hope you have some kind of way to get rid of that effect, otherwise you're boned, because you can't even get out unscathed from the attack with just a DC 12 save that it was before. However, one enemy that seems to go back on this design and almost seems to laugh in the face of it, go against it completely, change its stat block massively to sort of be the opposite of this, is the Rakshasa. Its melee attack no longer applies an automatic curse that stops you from benefiting from a rest, and just does more damage instead. That guy already had an automatic effect that it applied, and they took it out. And also, maybe to counteract this, but also it's kind of took away one of its more signature features, it also has double the HP, but isn't immune to spells up to 6th level, but instead, it succeeds all saves against spells, and all spell attacks miss it, and nothing can spy or detect it without its permission. So if there are spells that require a save, it always succeeds them, but some spells still do an effect when you succeed, like you take half damage. So oddly enough, in a book full of attacks where they inflict automatic conditions and taking away the need for saves across the board, the Rakshasa welcomes the chance to roll a save, but just succeeds them all instead of being completely immune. I just don't get it, like their attack already had an automatically inflicted curse that doesn't do that anymore, and instead of not having to do saves, it now does saves. You see what I mean? Just wild. But to go the complete opposite way, giants. You'll be glad to hear that in general, the giants have been buffed. They can use range and melee however they please instead of just melee or range. They too apply automatic conditions with their attacks, have more HP, and are generally a much more viable threat considering that they are massive hulking titans of people. But one giant stood out among the rest. Cloud giants. First of all, they fly now.
They fly now? They fly now!
Also, their melee attack now does 2d6 more damage, which is pretty good, and yeah, they can't throw a big rock anymore, boo-hoo, but how does Misty Step every turn and instantly incapacitating a player from 240 feet away sound instead. Yes, a giant that can fly and teleport and hits like a truck from wherever it wants. It can automatically incapacitate someone from a massive range of 240 feet. To put that into perspective, storm giants can blind and deafen automatically with their lightning attack, which is bad. But arguably, in the rules of D&D, that's not as bad as being incapacitated, because even if you're blind and deaf, you can still act, you just have setbacks, rather than having your turn completely robbed from you at a massive range. Sorry, I'll do something much more calming, okay? Mind flayers. Now, they've pretty much remained exactly the same, except, well, if you knew what they could do before, they're exactly the same, but their attacks have also followed on from this new design, meaning they can automatically stun you with their tentacles, and also their mind blast, a blast of psychic energy, does some damage, do a save, are you stunned? Well, you guessed it, it does more damage and also auto-stuns you, only for a round instead of 1 minute, but still, good lord, this is a creature that has 1 more CR than a mammoth. Across the book, you'll see that the higher CR guys have had a big buff, so let's cover liches. You'll see that monsters of a certain CR have stats that fit the CR and not just what we assume about them. A lich is a walking corpse, meaning that it has what, like 135 hit points? That seems to make sense. Well, now, their HP is increased drastically to 315, and they now have 20 as their AC, and they can cast shield every round to make it 25, or counterspell you every turn without a spell slot. On their turn, they can make 3 ranged bolt attacks that each deal 4d12 plus 5 damage, pretty good, but they also have a melee touch that instantly paralyzes you without a save. And yes, how often are you going to see a lich bare-knuckle boxing their enemies? Not likely. This will probably be a way to get out of melee. If the barbarian is running on their flank, they can just touch you and run away, but automatic paralysis just feels wild. Their spells have been somewhat messed around, in a way that I think people might not like, but I am fine with it. It just means that instead of slots, all the things that they had 1 slot for, they now can only do once per day, that kind of thing. Also, they have a bunch of spells that they can just cast at will. For example, they can do a level 5 fireball every turn, so, you know, they can be like... But while that's crazy, insta-paralyzing and being incredibly tanky, if we turn the page just once, here's a strange pick for this video. Archmages. Like how they improved the Lich, these guys have a lot more HP and AC than their original counterparts. But, if you look a bit closer, oh boy. So, on their turn they can make 4 4d10 ranged bolt attacks. Now just take that in. 4 4d10 bolts. The Lich had 4d12, but could only do 3 of them. These guys can dish out an average of 100 force damage a turn in 4 bursts. Now, I hear you. That's nothing compared to the Lich. The Lich has health, AC, spells, legendary actions, etc. But that's a CR 21 monster, and Archmages are CR 12. And that's not mentioning that these guys can use Fly and a 9th level Cone of Cold. And yes, I know, a 9th level Cone of Cold compared to the fact that they can no longer cast Time Stop. But is a few rounds to just reposition and have a drink better than a massive spell? Depends on the circumstance, I suppose. And if things are looking bad, they can cast Teleport. But to end out, you know how we've long endured all these memes online of how the Tarrasque isn't that hard? Because all you needed was a level 1 Owlin with a longbow and it will eventually kill it. Slowly, but eventually, because it has no ranged attacks. Well, they did it. They gave it a ranged attack. Except guess what? It's not gonna stop the memes. In a book where they gave everything a ranged attack and a melee attack, sometimes smushed into one, the one ranged thing that they gave to the Tarrasque was a 5 to 6 recharge raw attack. 5 to 6 recharge means that they can't do it every turn reliably, and guess what the range is? 150 feet. Well, that does bring us to a stalemate. Our level 1 Owlin with a longbow has the same range now. I guess we'll need a level 4 Owlin that's taken the sharpshooter feat instead. You took out all the throwing of rocks from the giants, but oh my god, you could have just given it a throw rock attack. It would have been so easy, even if it just did damage and proned you. Even then, it would have had a reliable source of range. With all these changes, even after you said it in a short on your YouTube channel that you made it so that the Tarrasque was able to overcome its weaknesses, it still isn't enough. Its only defense against us is that now it can burrow. And at that point, that's just a CR30 Tarrasque hiding underground from a f***ing owl. Thank you for watching, and if you like this video, then please leave a comment down below telling me about your favourite monsters or changes in this new book. Also, click the video on screen to see my video where I cover what you need to know before you buy this book. I love you all, and I'll see you next time.